Hello guys, this is Rahul, and in today's session we are going to talk about how to set up a Jenkins continuous pipeline for deploying your application inside Kubernetes cluster. But before we begin, there are certain components which we need to talk about. The first component is your application. That application can be a Java application, it can be a Python, it can be a Node.js, or it can be an Angular application. The second component which you need is you need to have a GitHub or SVN, a versioning tool where you can push your code. The third component, you need a Jenkins. You need to install Jenkins so that you can create your pipeline. The fourth component, you need a Docker. You need to install Docker, as well as you need to create a DockerHub account because we need to push our Docker image inside our DockerHub. You need to have some container registry online where you can push your Docker images. The fifth and final component is your Kubernetes cluster. You need to set up your Kubernetes cluster, and what I prefer setting it everything on my local machine. I'm not using any cloud service provider. So if you haven't done it before, you haven't set up any Kubernetes cluster before, then I'll put this link into the description as well as here so that you can follow that video where I have shown you how to set up your Kubernetes cluster using Kubespray so that you can set up your Kubernetes cluster on your development machine. Okay, so talking about the component, after that we need to see the workflow, how our workflow gonna look like. So there are certain steps. We will be covering all these steps in the workflow. So let's check out the workflow first.
So this is our workflow. On the left hand side, you can see step number 1 where we are going to push our code to the GitHub repository. After that, we are going to install Jenkins, and Jenkins will be responsible for cloning the code from GitHub to the Jenkins server so that it will have a copy of our application code inside our Jenkins server. The third step is we are going to compile our project since we are using Spring Boot application, so we are using Gradle as a compilation tool. But in case if you are using any other application, then you can use suitable compilation tool. But step gonna be a pretty much similar. The fourth step, we are going to prepare a Docker image of our application after the successful compilation. And after that, we are going to push our image to the DockerHub. And the next step, we need to pull that latest, whatever image we have pushed into the step number 5, we are going to again pull that latest image in the step number 6 because we need to deploy that latest Docker image into the Kubernetes cluster. So after we pull that latest image in the step number 6, we are going to push that, not push, but we are going to deploy that Docker image inside our Kubernetes cluster. So this is how our workflow looks like. And throughout the session, I'll share this guide with you, and you can find the guide link into the description. So where I have documented all the steps which is required for setting up your Kubernetes pipeline. So please check that link, and you don't need to remember any commands or any instructions during the video. You can come back to this guide and follow the same. And this is going to be our final goal. I showed you this is the dashboard, but we are going to accomplish all this step throughout this session. So as a prerequisite, as I already told you, we need a Vagrant, VirtualBox, and some IDE. It can be any Sublime, Atom, or Visual Studio, or IntelliJ. And then you need to have a Kubernetes cluster. So Kubernetes cluster, you need to have it. That's a pre-requirement. You can use Google Cloud Platform or AWS if you want to provision your Kubernetes cluster already somewhere on the cloud services. Otherwise, you can pretty much set up this Kubernetes cluster on your local development environment also. So you can follow this link where you can use Kubespray to set up your Kubernetes cluster. So this is the guide for setting up Kubernetes cluster on your local machine so that you don't have to use any Google Cloud or AWS cloud service provider. Okay, so I'm assuming like you have done this step, because if you haven't done this step previously, then there is no point moving forward. So I would highly recommend to set up this cluster. And one more thing, if you are not interested in this blog post, then there is a YouTube tutorial, a complete lab session where I have set up the Kubernetes installation using Kubespray on my local machine. So you can follow this video tutorial also where you will be able to set up your Kubernetes cluster if you are not interested in this complete long guide. But anyways, you should do this, and I'm assuming before you move to any of the step, you have done all this requirement. All right, so let's move to the step number one. So in the step number one, here I'm trying to explain our setup, how it's gonna work and how it's gonna look like. So primarily we will have three servers. One will be Jenkins server, and second will be Kubernetes master node, and third will be Kubernetes worker node. So this is the Jenkins server. On the left hand side, you can see in the diagram, that's a Jenkins server running on the IP 0.100.0.0.1. So that is done via Vagrant file. I'll show you in the next step. So this is our Jenkins server with this IP, and from here we will be automating all the Kubernetes deployment on these nodes. So that is running on 100.0.2 and 3. So that is our Kubernetes master node, and that is Kubernetes worker node. So we will be working primarily on this Jenkins server and nothing else. So everything we are going to do, we are going to perform on this Jenkins server. To add some more detail, this is the configuration which I am using. So Jenkins server, I'm running on 2 gigs of memory, 2 CPU, and this is the IP range I have assigned. So pretty much I have assigned the same memory and the same number of CPUs. And this is my Vagrant file which I just talked about. So this is the Vagrant file for provisioning this Jenkins server. So if you don't know about Vagrant, then please just Google it. It's a very simple virtual environment setup tool which you can use. So this is our Jenkins, and this is our Kubernetes master and Kubernetes worker. So if you look on this Vagrant file carefully, so here we are setting up everything. So this is our Jenkins server where we have assigned 2 gigs of memory and 2 CPU. And similarly, this is our Kubernetes master, and this is our Kubernetes worker. So you just need this Vagrant file to start your virtual environment. So yeah, this is the step number one, which is like a primarily a very brief overview how our setup gonna work. Moving to the step number second, here you can see this is the workflow, and I think we have covered this workflow, so we don't need to repeat that part. So we can move to the next stage. Okay, so the step number third, which tells us like you need to install Jenkins on your Jenkins server. So as in the flow diagram you have seen, this is our Jenkins. So we need to install this Jenkins, and this Jenkins will be installed on our, sorry, I just moved back. But this Jenkins will be installed on this server. Okay. So that we need to perform first of all. That is our primary requirement. So what you can do is you can just follow this instructions. So you need to start your Vagrant box. So for your reference, I have already started my Vagrant box here. So that is up and running. So I don't need to start it. So if you haven't started, then please do start your Vagrant box. Okay, then you need to log in into Jenkins server. Okay, so that I think I logged in into another instance. So I will exit it from here, and I can show you the Vagrant file also, which is okay. So this is the same Vagrant file which I just showed you. So this is Jenkins server, this is master, and this is worker. Okay, so now I need to log in into my Jenkins server. Jenkins server. Okay. Okay, so now I'm logged in into Jenkins server, and here you can see the IP address of this one. All right. So after login, I'll clear the screen. So that is done. We need to update our server repositories. So this is the command which you can use because since this is your going to be a very first Vagrant box, and the first thing which we need to do is we need to tell Ubuntu. I'm using Ubuntu as my OS host OS. So you need to tell it to upgrade it, not upgrade, but at least update its repository so that we can install certain packages. Okay, so that is being done. Now we need to install the Java because Java is needed for running the Jenkins. Okay, so you can copy this command and paste it over here. So that is going to install OpenJDK 8. And do you want to install? I will press yes. Okay, so I think Java has been installed, and you need to verify the Java installation using this command so that you know that you have installed the Java successfully. So you can paste it over here, and as you can see, we have installed the OpenJDK version 1.8. So that means Java has been installed. Okay, I'll clear the screen so that we get a little bit more space to see. And yeah, this is the output. I have pasted it here for the reference. Okay, so now I'm assuming you have installed the Java on your instance successfully. Next thing, we need to install Jenkins. And for that, you need to copy, not copy, but yeah, you need to have this package. So we are going to use this command. And since I'm doing it on Ubuntu, but if you are using Red Hat, CentOS, or Fedora, then please refer to the documentation provided by Jenkins, because there are little different documentation for different operating system. So please follow this official guide where if you are using any other operating system. Okay, but for the time being, I'll use this command since I'm using Ubuntu. And yeah, you just need to copy and paste everything. So you don't have to remember these steps because this is the one-time setup you need to do it. Okay, paste anyway. And yeah, that's done. And then I'm going to update it. All right, that's done. And then I'm going to install it. Okay, I'll press yes. So basically, I have just added that repository info of Jenkins into our Ubuntu system. And after that, I have updated the repository. And after that, I have installed the Jenkins. So it is going to download all the required binaries and it is going to perform the installation. Okay, so now Jenkins has been installed. So next thing which we need to do is we need to verify the Jenkins installation. Okay, so since I'm using a virtual environment and I have assigned a dedicated IP for my Jenkins instance, that is 100.0.0.1. So I'm assuming that my Jenkins will be accessible on this port followed by my IP address. So in case if you have assigned a different IP address, then please carefully replace this IP address with the IP address which you have used. Okay, so copy this URL and paste it over here, and you should see an initial login page. Okay, so here you can see unlock Jenkins, and you need to provide one-time administrator password, initial admin password, okay, to unlock it. All right. If you are able to see this screen, then that means you have successfully installed Jenkins. Okay, the next step, we are going to fetch the password. Okay, so here is the screenshot which I have pasted for the login screen for your reference. Okay, so the next step would be we need to fetch the default Jenkins password, which is needed here. Okay, so how to fetch that? So there are two ways actually. One is using this Jenkins.log file, and secondly, you can use this help which is provided by this Jenkins login page. So you can either view this file or you can verify the Jenkins log file also. So I can show you the both way. So first of all, this copy this command, or you can copy this command from here also, that is cat and followed by the complete path. So you need to go back to your terminal. I'll clear here and paste it. So here you need to carefully look for this thing. So this is your password. Okay, so that is the first way to find the password. I'll clear it. Secondly, you can find the password from here also. So just copy this. And I have mentioned the same thing over here also. So once you will use this Jenkins.log file, then you will see some password, something like that. And please don't use this password. This is when I did it. So this is mine password. It will not work for you. So you need to find your own password. Okay. All right. So second way is you need to copy this path and go to the terminal and paste it over here. Okay, so permission denied. I'll use with sudo. I think I'll clear it anyway. Sudo. Okay, I think I messed it up. So it should be sudo cat. And here is the password, which you can copy from here. and you can go back and paste it over here. Okay, and click continue. So once you provide the password, it will ask you for the install suggested plugin. Okay, so just go with the default and click here, and it will by default install some default plugin which is needed for running the Jenkins, and it might take some time. So I'll be back once this is done. Okay. Alright, so once you have installed the default plugin, it will ask you to set up a admin user and the password that is needed for the login when you're trying to access the Jenkins portal. So at that point, it needed for to log in inside your Jenkins instance. Okay, so I'm going to put the password and username. So I'm using admin and password is also admin. So this is just for demo purpose. So I'm just not going to put some real detail over here. So all right. Okay. So once you set up all this thing, just save and continue. And here, just be careful, like the IP address, it should reflect the same IP address of your Vagrant machine. So that should be same, since I'm using 100.0.1, 0.1, so it should be the same, and the port is 8080. If you don't remember this, then just copy and store it somewhere. Okay, so click save and finish and start using Jenkins. Okay, so if you see this message, welcome to Jenkins, that means you have successfully installed the Jenkins, and you have also set up the admin user, which is needed for a Jenkins. Okay, let's head back to our guide and see how many steps we have done. So I think we have installed this custom plugins, the default plugins. After that, we have set up the administrator username password also. Then we have checked the Jenkins URL also. That is also correct. And our Jenkins is ready. Yeah, that is it. Okay, so now we have, I think, pretty much done with the Jenkins installation, and we are able to access the dashboard also. So the next step, we need to install some special plugins. That is our step number 5, and the plugin which I'm talking about is SSH Pipeline Steps plugin. Okay, uh, don't worry if you don't understand why we need this pipeline plugin, but in the next steps, I think during later somewhere in this lab session, we are going to use this plugin for deploying our application inside Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so copy this name. This is our plugin which we are going to install. So you need to copy it and go to Manage Jenkins, go to Manage Plugins, then Available, and search here. So it should pop up here because since we have not installed, so we need to install it. Okay, so click this plugin and install without restart. Okay, so it should take maybe a minute or so, and it should be installed. Okay, so now it has been installed. Go back to Jenkins. All right, so I think we have installed that plugin. Let's head back to our guide. And there is a one more step, 5.1, 5.2. So 5.1 is done, where we have installed this plugin, SSH Pipeline Steps plugin. Next thing, we need to set up Gradle. Okay, why we need Gradle? Since we are using Spring Boot application, so Gradle is the default build tool we are using. If you're familiar with Java applications, then I think there is one more famous Maven build tool which you can also use. But for this session, I'm using Gradle, and we need to set up Gradle to build your Spring Boot application. Okay, to set up, we need to go to Manage Jenkins, then Global Tool Configuration. So this is the path you need to follow. Okay, so go to Manage Jenkins. After that, the Global Tool Configuration. And after that, you need to scroll down, and here there is a Gradle. Okay, so we need to set up the Gradle. Okay, so for that, what you need to do is you need to click on this aid Gradle. Okay, there is a aid Gradle. Okay, I clicked it. Then you need to assign the name. What is your default installation? So I am keeping it default. So you just go ahead and put the name default. Okay, then you need to specify install from gradle.org. So what's version of Gradle you're gonna use. So I'm gonna use the Gradle 6.7, the default one. Okay, and then after that click apply and then click save. All right, so now we have installed Gradle. Let's move to the next step, which is step number 6, and we need to install Docker inside our Jenkins server. So the next requirement is we need to have Docker, which is installed inside our Jenkins server. So if you are not logged in into Jenkins server, then you can again use this command to log back in. But we are pretty much already into the Jenkins server, so we don't need to log back in. I'll clear it. And then what you need to do is you need to use this command sudo apt install docker.io. So it is going to install the Docker inside your Jenkins server. Okay. So I'm gonna paste this command over here and hit enter. So press yes, I want to install. It might take some minute or so. So I'll be back when this installation is done. Okay, so I think we have installed Docker, and the next thing which we need to do is we need to verify the installation of our Docker. So what you can do is you can run the command, I guess, some Docker command here. So I'll clear it. Okay, so yeah, I can run the Docker command and I can see the help documentation, and I think I can run the Docker version also. Okay, here you can see we have installed the Docker. Okay, so that means you have successfully installed the Docker on your Jenkins server. Okay, but be careful, we are getting this issue. So first of all, we need to solve this issue. So there is a docker.sock file. Once you install Docker on your Linux operating system, then by default you don't have a permission on this docker.sock file. So we need to first of all have a permission. Otherwise, we will not be able to go ahead in this our lab session. Okay, so first of all, let's go back and check in the guide. Okay, so here in this guide, there is a step 6.3 which tells about this issue where we need to give the permission. Okay, so to add this permission, what we need to do is we need to add current user, the user which is logged in inside right now. Okay, so that is our current user, which is Vagrant, and we need to assign this user into the Docker group. So we need to add this user into the Docker group so that we have all the permission on this docker.sock file. Okay, so copy this command, head back to your terminal and clear it and paste it over here. Okay, so once you've done this, then you should be able to access that sock file. Okay, so to verify that error has gone, what you need to do is you need to exit and log back in. Okay, so that user has been added to that Docker group. So I will exit it from here. Okay, so I'm now exit from my Vagrant machine of Jenkins server. I'll clear it and I need to log in. So I log back in. Okay, I'll clear the screen here and I'll rerun the command docker version. And here you can see now that error has gone. The permission issue on that docker.sock file has gone. Okay, so that means our Docker has been installed and we have added current user to the Docker group. Okay, moving to the step number 6.4, here what we need to do is we need to add Jenkins user also to the Docker group. Okay, because we are going to use Jenkins for running or building the Docker image. So if you go back to this guide here in the diagram, you can see, this Jenkins is responsible for building the image. So if you want Jenkins to build the Docker image, then Jenkins user should have a permission to run this Docker command. Okay, so for that, what you need to do is you need to add that Jenkins user to the Docker group. Okay, so I'll copy this command and I'll clear this screen and paste it over here. Okay, that has been done, and for safer side I'll exit it and I'll log back in so that that user has been added to that group. The Jenkins user has been added to that group. Okay, so I'll clear it and that is done. Okay, so now we need to move to the step number 7, and here we will look on our Spring Boot application actually. What is our Spring Boot application is doing and why we are going to deploy it. So in the step number 7, this is our very basic web service, which is a REST web service, and it is returning nothing but a simple hello world message. Okay, so that is a Spring Boot application which I am going to deploy inside our Kubernetes cluster. But this whole tutorial you can use it for any other application also, since it is a Spring Boot application. That this part you can replace it with any Angular, Node.js, or any other application on which you can containerize it, or we can create a Docker image. Okay, so this is a very basic code which you can find it over here, and I'll put the source code GitHub repo here also, the link, so that you can go and browse. Secondly, we need to have a Docker image. We need to create a Docker image. So for that purpose, we need to provide a Docker file. So basically it is doing, I can show you the code here. So this is the whole code, and this is our Docker file. So this Docker file is responsible for building the Docker image. So it is going to go inside the build libs directory and going to pick the jar file. Okay. So you just browse around this code. So it's pretty simple code with the hello world application. All right. So this is our code. This is our Docker file, which is responsible for creating the Docker image of our Spring Boot application. Okay. So this is just a small walkthrough of my application, which I'm going to deploy inside Kubernetes cluster. Okay. Okay, so the next step should be our step number 8, where we are going to write our pipeline script. Okay, and this is going to be a little long step, because here we are going to tell everything to Jenkins, like what we need to do or what you need to do as a responsible person for setting up the continuous pipeline. Okay, so moving to the step number 8, what we need to do is, first of all, we need to create a Jenkins pipeline. So go back to your Jenkins and click to the new item. Here input the pipeline name. So here I'm taking the pipeline name as a JHook Spring Boot. You can take whatever you want. And after that, select pipeline and then click OK. And that should create a pipeline for you, and you can verify by going back to the dashboard, and this is the pipeline. Okay, so this is a blank pipeline, there is nothing in it, so we are going to fill in the values, not values but scripts, Jenkins script, so that we can deploy our application. Okay, moving further, 8.2, we need to clone the git repo. So as I explained, the Jenkins will clone the git repo. Whatever code we have in our GitHub, it is going to clone. So first of all, we need to write this script. This is going to clone our GitHub repo. Okay, so this is the URL which I am providing, and as well as this is the GitHub credential that we need to provide. Okay, so this is the script which we need to provide inside our pipeline. So go back to your Jenkins. This is the dashboard and the pipeline which we have created. Click on it and go to configure and then go to pipeline. Okay, so this is where we are going to write our pipeline script. So before we begin, so first of all, we need to write node, and after that we are going to write our script. Okay, so you can copy this thing, this stage. Everything we do inside in Jenkins as a stage. So consider step similar to a stage. Okay, so this is our stage number 1, where we are defining git clone. This is a user defined name. You can put whatever you want for your reference. Second, you need to provide the git credential ID. Okay, I'll explain this what is git credential, but first of all, let's check the URL, because the URL should be always be correct. Okay, so this is my URL, and you can copy and paste it over here, so that you are you are not providing incorrect URL. Okay, so yeah, my URL is correct, and then I'll click apply and then save. Okay, so my pipeline, first pipeline script is ready, where we are trying to clone the GitHub repo. But there is one thing which we haven't done it yet. So go to pipeline again, and here you will see there is a GitHub credential. So this is a username and password of my GitHub account. Okay, because Jenkins will go to GitHub, and then from there it will fetch, but while fetching it needs username and password to access the GitHub repo. Okay, so we need to create this username and password. Okay, so go back to your guide, and here I have shown you how to create it. So first of all, go to Jenkins, then manage Jenkins and manage credentials. Okay, so go back to Jenkins, then manage Jenkins, then manage credentials. Okay, and after that, once you come to this screen, then you need to click on manage credentials. Okay, so yeah, after that you will come over here, and then you need to look for store scope Jenkins. Okay, so here this is the option we are looking for, and here you need to click on global, then add credentials. Okay, just follow with this guide. I have taken the screenshots also. So here what you need to select is from the drop down you need to select username with password, because we need to store GitHub username as well as GitHub password. Okay, so username is password, it is selected, and let's check. Okay, and scope is global Jenkins. Yeah, that's fine. And this is the username I need to fill in. So I'll put in my username, Rahul Wag, and after that my password. So this is your GitHub password you need to key in. Okay, then you need to assign the ID. So this is the ID I'm talking about. Okay, so if you look our pipeline script, so here I'm using this ID, so GitHub credential. So this ID is coming from here. Here we are creating it, and for description you can put whatever which suits your which helps you to understand what it is actually. GitHub credentials. Okay, then click OK, and this is your GitHub credential. All right, so now your first stage is done for the Jenkins pipeline. Okay, so let's go back and verify once again. Pipeline. Okay, so yeah, it's done. So let's run this pipeline. We have not completed yet, but we are going to perform one step and we are going to run it to verify it. Okay, so just build now. And as you can see, this is building. This is our git clone stage, and this is green. That means our stage 1 has successfully completed. And if you'll go here, and then you can see cloning the repository. This is the repository we have cloned. So our step number 1 is completed, and this is our GitHub credentials, which is used internally by Jenkins. Okay, all right. So again, I'll go to configure and then pipeline. Okay, so our stage 1 is done. Then we are going to write our next stage. So go ahead in the guide, and I think we are done with the grid credential stage also. Then what our next stage is, we need to build our Java application, the Spring Boot application. We have cloned our GitHub repo, so the Java code is with us, with Jenkins actually. So if you see this diagram, so Jenkins is having all of our code. Okay, so now we are entering into this step where we are building and compiling. Okay, so this is the step where we need to do. So this is again, as you can see, it is pretty simple. Stage, you can put the stage name, whatever you want, and then the build command, Gradle build. Okay, so I'll copy this and go over here and paste it over here. Click apply, save. Okay, and see, once we start building it, these steps will keep on adding. So we only added git clone, so that's why this is git clone stage. And then now I have added a build step. Okay, so I'll build now. And here you can see we have a git clone, and after that we have a Gradle build. Okay, and this build is still going on. And you can click on this console output also if you are interested. Then you can see this is where our compilation is having with the Gradle that is compiled, the tasks are running, and if you see previously, so it has already cloned our Spring Boot repo. Okay, so as you can see, build is successful. Now we can go back and verify. So this is our stage number 1. This is our stage number 2. All are green. Okay. Okay, so now we are done with the 2 stage. Let's go back to our guide. And what is the next stage is we need to build the Docker image and tag it. Okay, so now we have cloned it. So let's check our flow diagram. So we have cloned it, we have built it using Gradle, and now we are going to prepare a Docker image. So for preparing the Docker image, we need to copy this stage. So this stage is also very simple. So this is a stage and script where we are starting this stage. This is just an helper command which I have put it. It's just a Docker version command so that I can check which Docker version is running inside my Jenkins. After that, this is our Docker build command, which is building my Spring Boot application. Not building, but it's building Docker build actually. Then after that, Docker image list that will tell us how many Docker build images I have created. And then I'm tagging with the name jhook docker demo. Okay, so my Docker image name will be tagged with this name. Okay, so this is the stage of our Docker build. So I'll copy it, go to pipeline, and then again go to configure, go to pipeline. As you can see, stage 1 is done, 2 is done, and this is third, which I'm going to insert it over here. Okay, so this is just a Docker build we are doing. So apply, save, and then build. So now it will add one more third stage over here. Okay, so it has started, it's going on, it has cloned, now it is doing a Gradle build. And now it's doing the Docker build. And I think it's done. As you can see, it's success. So our 3 stages has been completed. You can verify with the logs also. So if you see over here, I'll show you. This is the last stage where we did the Docker build. Sorry, not Docker build, Gradle build. And this is our third stage where we have checked the Docker version. If you check our script, so this is our Docker version, first of all. After that, yeah, here. Then I am performing my Docker build command. Okay, so that is happening with this. After that, I did Docker list images, and these are the images which I have built over inside my Jenkins. So this is done by this. And finally, I'm tagging it with this jhook docker demo name. Okay, and that is you can see from here. All right, so now we are done with the creation and tagging of a Docker image. Okay, so let's go back to our guide. And the next step, what we need to do is we need to create a DockerHub credentials in our manage credential inside Jenkins. Okay, why we need? Because in the next step, we are going to perform a Docker login. I'll explain it later. But first of all, let's go back to Jenkins, go to Manage Jenkins, go to Manage Credentials, go to here, Global, Add Credentials. And here we need to create a secret that is our Docker Hub password. Because from the Jenkins, if you see over here, this Jenkins is responsible for pushing our image to the Docker Hub. So we need to push our final image to this Docker Hub. Okay, but to push anything into the Docker Hub, you need to authenticate your Jenkins. And for authentication purpose, we need to provide username as well as the password. Okay, but we can provide that username in the command line. As you can see over here, this is the Docker login command line interface, CLI, where you can just perform a Docker login with U stands for username, and that is your username, and then P, that is password. Since I cannot disclose that password as a plain text over here, so that's why I need to create and store it inside my Jenkins as a secret. Okay, so that's why I need to create this secret, and I'll copy this ID. You can keep this ID whatever you want. I'll show you how it is. So what you need to do over here is you need to go here and select secret file, because I need to not secret file, secret text actually. I need to store my password. So I want to store my password as a secret text. Okay, and here I'm going to put in my actual DockerHub password. Okay, so you need to have your own DockerHub password ready with you. After that, you can create or assign an ID. That ID can be anything which you can remember and which is some meaningful name. So I'm keeping the name as a DockerHub password. Okay, and in the description, just put some helpful text like a DockerHub password, and then click OK. So here you can see previously we have stored GitHub credentials, and now we are storing the DockerHub password here. Okay, now that's been done. Go back to Jenkins and then go back to our pipeline, go to configure. See, you can see our previous build, git clone, Gradle build, Docker build. Now we are adding fourth. So configure, go to pipeline, and then go back to our guide. And this is our Docker login stage. So here I am providing my username and the password which I have just stored inside our manage Jenkins secrets. Copy this stage, go to pipeline, go to the new line, paste it over here, apply, and then save it. Okay, and then you can build the pipeline. And that should add one more fourth stage to your build. That is your Docker login. Here you can see this is our Docker login. Okay, so that's been successful, and we can go and see over here, and there should be a Docker login. There it is. This is a Docker tag, and after that, this is our Docker login, which is also successful. Okay, so login succeeds. So this is the message which you need to look for. All right, so let's go back to our guide. Okay, so here, this is my guide. And now what we need to do is we need to push our Docker image into DockerHub. So just go back to our flow diagram. So now we are done with the login also. Now we need to perform actual fifth step. That is push our latest image to the DockerHub. Okay, so till now we are just preparing everything. So we have built the image, we have authenticated Jenkins so that we can push the Docker image. So for that, this command is pretty simple. This is our next stage, push image to DockerHub, and the command is docker push, and then the username and the DockerHub repository. Okay, so here you can see this is my DockerHub repository. If you haven't done it, so I think you can go to DockerHub and you can create your own repository from here. You can click on here, create repository, and it should create something similar repositories for you. Okay, so I have already done it, and I'll show you one more thing over here. So as you can see, I have pushed my last image 2 hours ago. Okay, but this will get update once we push our latest image. All right, so I'll copy this command. This is not a command, this is our Jenkins script. So go to our pipeline, configure into the pipeline, and here we need to add one more stage. Push image to DockerHub. Docker push your DockerHub repository name and the image with which you have tagged it. So that is jhook docker demo. Okay, apply, save, and now we have already done with the fourth step. Now we are adding fifth one. Okay, so build. As you can see, this is our push image. So here our Jenkins is pushing our image to the Docker Hub. And if you go to the console output, then you should see something. Yeah, Docker push to this Docker Hub repository, and it has already pushed all our images. and that is success. So go back to the status where we can see, yeah, everything is green, and now our push image to Docker Hub has been successful. So let's go back to Docker Hub, and as you can see, previously I have done it 2 hours ago. Now I will refresh this page. And as you can see, it is a few seconds ago. So our Jenkins has pushed the latest image of our Spring Boot application to the Docker Hub. Okay, so we are done with this, our fifth stage. So till now we have pushed our image to the Docker Hub. Okay, let's go back to our guide and see what's the next stage is. So after pushing the image to the Docker Hub, the next stage is we need to SSH into our Kubernetes Master Server. Okay, so previously we have installed an plugin, that is SSH plugin for our pipelines, if you remember. So that plugin you can see from Manage Jenkins, go to plugin, yep, here it is, and installed. And there should be a pipeline plugin, I guess. Uh, Wait, that should be SSH pipeline. This is the plugin, okay, which we have already installed. So this plugin is required because we are going to perform an SSH login into our Kubernetes master node so that we can perform the deployment. Okay, so now we have already installed, and I have covered it in my previous steps. So what we need to do is we need to create one more stage, that is SSH into Kubernetes 8 server, our Kubernetes master server. And here we need to specify, this is the syntax of this plugin. This is how you are going to provide the IP address of your master node using the host name, remote.host. Here you will put in your IP address, the name, you can keep it anything, whatever you want, and the username and the password for login. Since it's a Vagrant virtual machine that is local to me, so I kept it as a plain text username and password. But as I told you, we cannot keep it, and I just showed you how you can create secrets in Jenkins. So pretty much you can follow the same step to create a secret for username and password also. Okay, so I'll copy this stage, and yeah, I'll copy it once more. I think there are some problem, and go back to our pipeline and configure, go to pipeline, and here after this we are going to add it over here. Yeah, okay, click apply and click save. Okay, so now we have added one more stage. So where we are going to SSH into, we are going to perform an SSH login into Kubernetes master server. Okay, so now we can click on build, and it will go through all the steps once more, and we should wait for a minute and then it should be ready. Okay, so now our next stage is done, that is SSH into Kubernetes server, and you can see it from here in the console output. That should be somewhere in the last. Yep. So that is success, and I think this is somewhere here. We have performed that login. It is not visible in the console. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So now that stage is also done. Now we are logged in into Kubernetes master node, and we can perform our deployment. So the next step is we need to copy this configuration YML, that is k8s Spring Boot deployment.yml, into our Kubernetes master node. So from where this is coming? So if you see our workflow, we have cloned the GitHub repo into Jenkins Server. So in the GitHub repo, I have created this file. If you come back to this GitHub repo here, you will see this file which I have created. So this YML configuration is responsible for deploying your Docker image. So if you remember, this is our Docker image, which we recently pushed to DockerHub. This is the username and the DockerHub image name. And I'm referring to the same DockerHub image over here. Okay, and this is the deployment configuration which I have specified for Kubernetes inside this YML. And after that, there is a one service. Whatever deployment I am doing, I need to expose that deployment as a service on the port 8080. Okay, so I have created this YML already. So once you are following this whole workflow, then you will get it this YML. If you are having some different GitHub repo, then please update this YML and or either copy this YML and update it according to your DockerHub image name. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go back to our guide and see what the stage says. So in this stage, what we are going to do is we need to copy this file into the Kubernetes master current directory. Okay, so here I'll show you, this is my Kubernetes master server, and this is my current path where I'm working, current directory, and here you can see there is no such a file over here. Okay, so now Jenkins is going to perform a copy onto this master node. So you need to copy this stage. So I'll explain the command over here. So this is the SSH put for copying, and I'm doing the remote copy on the Kubernetes master. So that's why I specified remote, the file name, and I'm putting it into the current working directory. Okay, so copy this stage and go back to your pipeline, go back to configure, go to pipeline. And remember, this stage is like a sub stage to this one. Okay, so always remember this is we are performing using our SSH pipeline plugin. So now whatever we are doing as a sub stage for this. So I'll paste it over here. And yeah, so first of all, it is going to perform an SSH login into our this server. And after that, it is going to put this file into the current working directory. And as you can see here, we don't have any file right now. Okay, click apply and then save, and then just do a build and just wait for a minute. Okay, so our workflow, the pipeline workflow has been completed, and we need to verify whether we got this YML into our Kubernetes master server or not. So I'll come here and I'll run the command ls. So as you can see, now we have copied this file into our server. I can do the ls minus lrt also. So this is the file. Okay. All right, so now we are done with this stage also. Let's go back to our guide and see what are the stages we are left with. Okay, so now after copying it, there is a one more sub stage which we need to perform, and that is we need to apply this configuration, and that configuration can be applied via kubectl apply command. Okay, and since we are using that SSH pipeline plugin, so we need to perform this using this SSH command syntax. So this will do SSH command. I mean, it is going to run this command inside our Kubernetes master node on a, and yeah, that should be it. So syntax is pretty simple. It is going to perform SSH command on a remote server, and that remote server is this one, and the command is this one. Okay, so I'll copy this stage, go back to Jenkins, and I'll go to configure, go to pipeline, and then again, remember this is a substage to this SSH k8 into k8 at server. So I'll go here and paste it over here. Okay, apply and save. Okay, so as you can see, we have gradually increased our stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we are with the 7 stages for our pipeline. And then we are going to perform a build. So again, wait for a minute and that it should be ready, I guess. All right, so as you can see, I think we have deployed and created the service of our Spring Boot Docker image, or we have deployed our Docker image of a Spring Boot application actually. So now what we need to do is we need to verify the deployment. Okay, so I'll come back to my Kubernetes master node, and what we need to do is kubectl get deployments. So here you can see the name of the deployment, that is JHook Spring Boot, and that is ready. Secondly, we need to check the service, get service. So here, this is my application that is running on a node port and with the port 3244. Okay, and if you remember in our Vagrant file, I have used the IP of my master node as 100.0.0.2. This is the IP. Okay, so now I need to access this Spring Boot application REST endpoint. So what I need to do is this, and then I need to copy this port name number. Okay, and then followed by hello. Okay, so as you can see, now we can pretty much access our Spring Boot application, which is deployed by Jenkins and running inside our Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so I think we are done with our Jenkins pipeline setup and automating our Kubernetes deployment using Jenkins. And if you go back to our guide, so this was our last stage which we did. And if you look on this script, so it's not a next stage, but it is a complete script which we pretty much created here inside our Jenkins. Okay, so I copied and pasted over here so that it is available for you in case if you forget anything or if you want to take a complete glance of how it looks like. Okay, so yeah, I think we are pretty much done, and I hope you liked today's session. And if you have any kind of a question, then please put down into the comment section. And I'm still preparing some more similar videos and similar sessions in upcoming days. So go back and check my channel where I keep on posting on DevOps and Kubernetes. So where I have previously posted a lot of similar content. And it will be really nice if you could subscribe and give me some feedback. That really helps me. Okay, so see you in the next lab session, and yeah, please feel free to put down or come back with the errors if you have or if you face any issue during this whole setup. Okay, see you. Bye bye.